All right. So this set me thinking about after the Ukraine war. It set me thinking how Nepal is similar and dissimilar to Ukraine, and what are the forces at play in Ukraine, and what are the forces in Nepal, and whether Nepal could face a situation similar to Ukraine. That is what got me thinking on this subject. And it's mostly about Nepal. It's more about Nepal than about Ukraine. But the comparison is interesting in many ways. As you will see, Ukraine is located between two big powers there. One is Russia, and on the other side is Western Europe and America. So it is sandwiched between the two big powers. And that in a similar manner, Nepal is also sandwiched between China and India. To that extent, we are similar. We have a very powerful communist government in the north, and we have an emerging power in India in the south. So as you can see, the length of the border on both sides is fairly equal. And then on the other side of Nepal, the northern side of Nepal, is Tibet, which is a sensitive area as far as the Chinese are concerned. So now both China and the United States are seeking greater involvement in Nepal right now. For a long time, Nepal was left as a sphere of influence of India. China did not normally interfere, provided that Nepal did not allow any anti-Tibet activities to take place from Nepal. But of late, the rise of China, as we all know, and both China and India, and by extension the United States, are now deeply interested in Nepal. And they are there, and their presence can be felt. So that is pushing us towards a Ukraine-like situation where two major powers are on two sides of the country, each vying for influence. So that's what makes the situation similar. Then the Americans are even talking about Nepal being an important security partner. How does Nepal become an important security partner for the US? But they are talking about that, and as you can see, the situation can heat up if things start, if people start to talk like that. Then there is since 1991, even in Ukraine was a very unstable country at that time, and the politics was for sale, and Russia was the buyer. I mean, Russia was buying politicians there. Similarly, since 1990, very much our own politics has been for sale, and then the buyer has been India, and now China and the US have entered the market. So the market has become a little bit more dangerous as of now. So then we have other similarity with Ukraine. Ukraine was an extremely corrupt country and poor governance after its independence. And Nepal has been similarly facing equally corrupt and nepotism in a similar manner. So we are not much different from Ukraine in that sense. So then Ukraine depends heavily on Russia for oil and gas, and Nepal depends on India for almost everything. So there is a dependence on one of the powers. Then Russia funded Ukrainian politicians who advocated political agenda with Moscow. Moscow's written by Moscow. And now India and China are seeking to fund political agenda for Nepal too. So again, there is a similarity between how we are being treated and how our situation, geographical situation and political situation and economic situation is very similar. So NATO is increasing its influence eastwards, and then China is trying to increase its footprint south to Nepal and beyond with its One Belt, One Road initiative. So sphere of influence, countries try to guard their sphere of influence, and Russia is trying to guard its Ukraine as its sphere of influence. And then EU has also said that it has interfered in this matter and is now involved in this war and has given automatic right for Ukrainian people to stay there up to 3 years, to come and work and stay there for 3 months, indicating thereby that that is also, they consider that their area of influence as well. And India also regards Nepal as its sphere of influence. You see, there are competing interests between nations, and they're all trying to prove that it is their area of influence and they have the right and they are on the right side of the war. And this kind of discussion is going on. So there was this 2014 overthrow of an elected president there, which is said to be instigated by foreign powers, which led to the annexation of Crimea and the start of the war. Nepal has also had a similar experience, not exactly of the same significance, but India did introduce a blockade along Nepalese border when they thought that the constitution that Nepal had introduced was not favored by some of the people along the India's border, but basically it is thought that Indian government was complicit in that process as well. So these events seem to keep occurring, where people are trying to prove who is in charge and whose order that they should follow. Now, Ukraine is a far richer country than Nepal. That's where the comparison ends. Nepal's GDP is only $36 billion and Ukraine is 156. It's a rich country. Nepal is one of the poorest countries after Afghanistan, with a per capita of $1,155. So it's one of the poorer countries here. And then Nepal is heavily dependent on export and import. In fact, the ratio of export was 1:5. Nepal used to import 5 times more than export of 1 to 5. Now currently it's 1:14. So basically Nepal imports almost everything. And the interesting part is that Nepal also imports palm oil and soybean, which actually Nepal does not produce, it exports. It imports from somewhere else and exports to India, and it does not produce these, it doesn't produce these things. It's just trying to be a middleman to make profit. And Nepal has economic and political woes unimaginable, or political woes. We have inflation running at 7.28%, 4.6 million people are food insecure. We have poor governance. We have lack of transparency. We have lack of accountability and efficiency. We are deficient in every sphere imaginable. It's very surprising as it is how so many things can go wrong with the country at the same time. What is keeping the country alive is the remittance. Yeah. And Nepal, more than half the households depend on remittance from abroad, and it amounts to 1/4 of the country's GDP, which is approximately $8 to $9 billion. This is what despite all the shortcomings, this is what keeps the country alive. Now, there are casualties of this kind of manpower exploitation. The migrants are dying at the rate of 1 in 2, doing construction work in the Gulf. And then there are, 39 battalions serving Gorkha regiments in the Indian army. Why are Nepalese fighting in other armies? Why are we fighting why are we in the British army? Why are we, why we got 55,000 of us died in the 2 wars. But Nepalese have basically, we as Nepalese, we have sold our services to other countries for practical, except no other reason except for payment. And so the cost of that has been enormous. We have currently going is financial mismanagement. We have got our priorities wrong, where we spend money over 100 billion rupees for the recent local elections, where we spend 2.5% of our GDP. And there is, as we speak, there is large scale money laundering going on. And many people, those that want to send money to Nepal, don't send it here. They just do an international transaction. The local person here gets Nepalese currency. The money does not come through Nepalese banks. So that has been. So as approximately I have got some approximate numbers of financial issues, and that is around, annual budget is about $15 billion. Balance of payment deficit is approximately $3 billion. International reserve is about $10 billion, and Nepal's overall debt is about $14 billion. Primarily because of these numbers, as you see, the numbers are not too bad comparatively. So when we look at the Sri Lanka situation, the numbers are much worse. Now, often the question is asked, will Nepal go Sri Lanka way, or will it not? Or will it go the Pakistan way or not? Right now, given the conditions I just outlined, Nepal is unlikely to go the Sri Lankan path because the financial situation has been very conservative. It has been managed well, by and large. The reason the financial situation is okay, as I said, is because of the remittances. The remittances have actually saved this country. Otherwise, institutionally, legislative, executive branches and the judiciary branch of the government don't work in Nepal. They don't work. People don't have faith in any branch of the government. So, but why does still Nepal survive, and why is the economy still acceptable? It is acceptable because nothing has been done that is outrageous, like Sri Lanka. Rajapaksa government wanted to make Sri Lanka Singapore. They not only said that, but they also did it. Every politician that comes to Nepal, comes to power in Nepal, also promises the same thing, but does nothing about it. They don't do much, they don't spend, they don't take huge loans, and they don't take too many risks. So as a result, Nepalese economy is, by and large, is okay. For now, it is pretty safe, but the political and the legal aspects of the country as a matter of serious concern to us. So, okay, so this is basically the gist of what I wanted to say. was that, in essence, Nepal does not need to worry about the financial collapse like people are expecting with Pakistan and Sri Lanka. They are in a much worse, far worse situation. But what we do have is a problem of managing the political dynamics that is coming to Nepal. The political dynamics is, from one side, we have the Chinese getting increasingly concerned about Nepal. And on the other side, we have the Indians and the Americans coming in very strong. Now, in case they are unhappy, what happens is what happened in Ukraine. The two of them may be unhappy, but the battlefield will be Ukraine. Its battlefield is not Europe, it is not America, it is Ukraine. So in Nepal's case, whether they agree or disagree, both of them, the battlefield is going to be our country, and the fight will go on here. They don't seem to take any action, for example, in Europe. Russia is not bombing Western Europe, and Western Europe is not bombing Russia. All the bombing is concentrated on Ukraine. So in case of a similar conflict in Nepal, it will be Nepal where the bombing will take place, and the people that will be killed will be Nepalese. So we as Nepalese, we need to get our act together first. Secondly, we need to get a government that is accountable, in place, that is accountable and responsible. At the moment, no one is accountable for anything. There is no one. People do not go to courts because they know that they cannot get justice there. People do not contact bureaucracy because they do not think that the bureaucracy will function. Bureaucracy, in fact, in Nepal is designed not to function. I have asked some of my friends in bureaucracy, why don't you take decisions? He said, as soon as I take decisions, they think I have taken money to make that decision. So better is not to make a decision. I get my salary whether I make decisions or not. I had a friend, Kaneko, our common friend, who was former UNHCR, who went on to become a minister here. I also asked him, how was his experience as a minister? And he told me he had a lot of responsibility and zero accountability as a minister. So the system is designed not to make decisions. Because the moment they make a decision, they are suspected of corruption, and then they are investigated. If they make no decisions, then everyone is happy. And he gets his salary, everyone moves on. So this is the kind of, and in terms of judiciary, whenever people are in a conflict situation, what they do is they are thinking of hiring private people to settle disputes because they cannot get a dispute resolved in a court of law, because the judiciary has become politicized, and people have absolutely no faith that they will get justice there. The legislative branch of the government gets elected, and their next focus is to get re-elected. There is no one who is asking them to meet certain targets or complete certain tasks. So all the effort goes towards getting re-elected. Now, re-election needs money. We need money to get re-elected. So they try to make that money as long as they are in power, so that they have at least a chance of getting themselves re-elected. So that is the state of the country. And but despite all of that, as I said, because we haven't done anything outrageous in terms of financial matters, the country is on a survival mode. It is not on a development mode. It's on survival mode. It has been for a very long time. We have qualified development as moving from current state to the state where the developed countries are. That's where we want to go. But in our case, it is such that we seem to maintain the status quo because that seems to work for everybody in power. There is no pressure felt needed to try to see that we progress from this situation to a better situation. That doesn't seem to be a need. Everyone seems to be happy with the way things are moving, and except for now youths. Some youths have started getting upset, and they have now electing people who do not belong to any power, youth leaders. Now there is a sign of hope that a new change in leadership might occur. But for now, it is the process, and process is complete in itself. It may go nowhere. And for the last 30, 40 years, Nepal as a country has gone absolutely nowhere. We are where we were, and we have brought in a new constitution, which no one knows whether it will work. A lot of people don't have faith in that. And we have brought in a system of representation that not everyone is happy with. Unless we go back to the drawing table and draw out something that is applicable and usable in Nepal, we are going to continue to be in the current situation. And if the rift between the United States and China continues to increase, which it seems to now, there is a problem that Nepal will also be embroiled in that, in the sense that the status quo will not remain. It hardly does. National boundaries have been changing and will probably continue to change. But the US-China conflict represents a departure, because suddenly there is a country that has emerged which is challenging 500 years of domination by Western European and American countries in the world. This is a massive change, massive change. Countries are not willing to accept this change, that there is a new power emerging, that too from Asia, that is challenging years of domination by particular race of people. So the danger is there. We know that the civilizations have gone and come up and gone down. Different civilizations have been in power, some, but every change of civilization follows a conflict. And this time the danger is that the conflict, if it happens, it will be nuclear. And that may be a very, very serious consequence for the world as large. So in conclusion, what I wanted to say is that Nepal, as economically, it is not going the Sri Lanka, Pakistan road, it is not. Two, it is getting caught in this push and pull between China and on one hand and India and US on the other. Nepal did sign agreement, One Belt, One Road initiative agreement with China, without India first signing it. Then the Americans came and pressured Nepal to sign MCC, Millennium Challenge Cooperation Compact, which Nepal did. So there is something interesting about Nepal. Nepal does whoever wants, whatever is the easiest, they will do it. They will take from China, and they will take from the US, and they will take from India. Yeah. It is okay to take from everywhere. There are consequences of doing that. Consequences are that everyone, all those who are, there is no free lunch. Mm-hmm. Everyone will expect us to do something in return. $500 million that is coming in through MCC is not free gift. Nobody should believe that. Neither is the China's offer of One Belt, One Road initiative free gift. Neither is all the assistance that we receive from India free. Everything comes at a cost. So the cost has not been calculated. We are in the habit of saying yes to everybody, which we have done now. Now, once we accept it, they will expect us to follow their line. And that is when the crux, when the issue, when the problem will begin. But for now, tradition, as per our tradition, we seem to, and there were some politicians also saying that is what we should do. We should take from everybody. There's a big danger of that. If we have not calculated the costs, we could very much land up in a Ukraine-like situation where Russia thinks Ukraine is in his sphere of influence. Western Europeans think that there is a free democratic world and the countries should be allowed to choose which side they want to. And the fact that Ukraine wants to be a member of NATO should be allowed. Each side thinks that they have an argument on their side. But similarly, with the two neighbors we have, they will also think as soon as we take their money. If we had not taken the money, we could argue. But now if we are going to take their money, $500 million, I think is already on the pipeline. And then the Chinese are coming up with several projects. Foreign minister is here talking about increasing American influence and so on. So they are also here and they're equally worried. So it's a process. We don't know where it's leading, but Nepal needs to manage itself in a way that it will not become Ukraine. And that will require long-term strategy, but enough adequate political thinking and adequate consideration of all the factors that are involved. So that is what I wanted to say, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very interesting lecture on the Ukraine war and how, Nepal is also at risk of being a battleground for, number of superpowers, just like Ukraine, and how, we should be vigilant and avoid it. Now we'll open this floor for our participants to put in their questions and Bhairaja sir to respond to them. If you have any questions, please raise your hands and you can unmute your mic and put your questions forward. Thank you.
I like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Bhairaja, hi, this is Deepak Raj Bhandari.
Yes, I can see you. Thank you.
And I'm with Purna at his house. We just had a lovely lunch.
Hi, Purna. Yeah.
We listened to your program. And I fully appreciate the analogy and the warning to say of on the underlying trend that is taking place here. My question is towards trying to find a more pragmatic, hardcore, simple approach to prevent the kind of collapse that you are foretelling, which I agree, if nothing is done, could happen. You had mentioned that we need to go back to the drawing table and redesign a lot of things. To me, that sounds too broad, not specific. What I like to hear from you is what specific concrete steps that we, the people, the civil societies, etc., should take. I think what I'm implying is we need to take hard calls, difficult calls, things that are not comfortable. We have to move from our comfort zones. Unless we do that, these suggestions need to be more definite. So I am looking forward to something that you could suggest we all should do. And with that, I'd like to look forward to your response. Thank you.
Deepak sir, thank you very much for that question. And thank you for participating in this discussion. I have always held a position. What is you ask for pragmatic approach? I have always said that the constitution we have drawn up now is not a constitution that Nepalese government can fund or implement. We have always argued for a smaller government, a smaller and more effective government. So where there will be a system where a few number of people will make decisions for the whole country and take it forward. If we have 761 different government bodies to manage in this country, we are opening this country to a lot of discussions and hundreds of thousands of politicians making different decisions. What is the difference between Nepal and Singapore? A lot of us talk about Nepal. In Singapore, there are few decision makers. They have a lot of powers, few decision makers, and they are held accountable. And Nepal, I think, under the kingship was much better managed than we have it now, because there were few decision makers, and they were all held accountable for something or the other. For now, the Constitution has broadened itself. There is a delegation of responsibility down, but it is a very diffused devolution of power, and therefore no one is held accountable. So my approach would be to say that let's have concentrated, let's elect few people there and give them power to run this country. It's a very small country with a small budget, and run it and hold people accountable. So the Constitution needs to be rewritten in the sense that there are a lot of useless institutions that the Constitution has envisaged. Parliaments, 7 states have 7 different parliaments. Why do we need that when power has already been devolved down to the local people? So on and so forth. So that's the drawing table I'm talking about. We need to go back, rewrite that Constitution in a way that it becomes functional in Nepal. At the moment, the way the system works is that even judges are appointed by political parties. And as soon as that happens, where are the loyalties? Loyalty is not to the people. It's to the political parties who appoint all these people. So basically, it's a bit of a longer issue, Deepakji, but the point is that we need to go back to the drawing table yet again and rewrite how we are going to go forward. And whether that will happen through election of people like Balen in Kathmandu is another issue. If that happens, then that will be a sort of a revolution in Nepal also. If individuals like that start getting elected, then we have a different scenario. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, sir. We'll go over to Texer for your question.
Thank you, Swetaji. Thank you, sir. Panday, sir, I enjoyed your talk. It was so clear and so important and so interesting. Somehow, I would like to just ask one question, and I would like to explain. Maybe we will not agree with your opinion that Nepal will go on the path of the Ukraine. In my analysis, this is my individual analysis, maybe I'm wrong, that Ukraine was a larger country, their economy, as you showed, that it has quite big economy, as well as the people of Ukraine, probably they were a little bit ambitious as well as maybe they were a little bit aggressive. But in Nepal, maybe the Nepalese people are not that aggressive, and they are not, not that ambitious. However, there could be some exception. This power-hungry politician might change the whole scenario again, which we can take the guarantee. So on that background, I would like to ask a very simple question, sir. Then what could be the way out for Nepal not to be the Ukraine? How we can go very safely, balancing these two emerging superpower, China and United States. How do you think? What kind of strategies, as you said, we should have take the strategies very carefully. So a little bit on micro level, what kind of those strategies should be that Nepal remains safe as it is? This is my simple question, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that question. My understanding is that even Ukraine, the turmoil in Ukraine was also created. The 14 2014 revolution, nowadays countries feel threatened. And when they feel threatened, they don't wait for people to rise, they cause the people to rise. Like Ukrainians, the revolutions that happened in Ukraine was being funded and instigated by sources not necessarily within Ukraine. Now, so particularly important revolutions and who comes there, and the larger strategy of how to remove one threat from the other. The issue is of threat. We human beings, we all are eternally responding to threats. That's how we are wired. Our brain is that we are eternally threatened, and when we are threatened, we behave like animals. We stop behaving like human beings. The animal part of our brain begins to function. So in Ukraine's case, even if they were not aggressive, they were made aggressive. Outside forces will make it so. In Nepal too, if people want to create problems here, Nepalese can be quiet, but then Nepalese can also be instigated to be aggressive. We had 10 years Maoist fight here. The people who were very quiet for hundreds of years suddenly picked up arms. So Nepalese are not that immune. My hope for Nepal would be that politicians here would be in a position to make a decision based on what is best for the country, not based on where they are going to get the money for the next election. Right now, most of the decision is made based on who is going to fund their next election. That is their prime, and they will, for that, they will go whoever invites them to their side. If they may at least say to take the money, they may say they may not vote for them or they may not necessarily adopt the policies, but they will at least take the money. Now, this system, which requires money, huge money to win election, is the wrong system for Nepal. And indeed, democracy is an issue in poor countries, is a big issue. Because if you have democracy here, you have to have elections. If you have elections, there's money involved. And if there's money involved, you need money from where? Somebody is going to pay you that money. So the whole system this kind of, which we inherited, this system of governance which we inherited does not work for a small, poor country like Nepal. So in answer the question, my answer to your question is, until we get politicians that are accountable for everything they sign, and they have to explain to people why we need MCC and why we need One Belt, One Road initiative, why we need assistance from China, until a credible argument can be made, we should not be accepting this kind of offers.
I have a question.
Okay. Great.
Great talk as always. I had a question. You draw the parallel between what's happening in Ukraine and what could potentially happen in Nepal. We see a lot of Western countries sacrificing their economy, giving military assistance to Ukraine, financial assistance to Ukraine, etc. Do you think countries would go to that extent to help Nepal, or would it be more a situation like other wars where Western powers or other countries kind of turn a blind eye on it? Kind of curious to get your opinion on that.
Thank you, Joyce, for the question. Now, my feeling is that right now the amount of money that countries put in a war depends on the foe they have. This time they have Russia as the foe, and Western Europe and United States have actually put themselves in a very, very difficult situation, which should have been resolved long time ago. They will spend now, since they cannot get out, neither can Russia win this war, nor can Western Europe win this war. None of the sides can win this war. So this war has the potential to continue for a very long time. And here, if it happens, if Nepal is a Ukraine situation, India will make sure, so Indian army will also march in and say, this is our sphere of influence. And with Indian army, the American assistance would come. Then, of course, the Chinese also cannot have these two foes in their border. So they will have a security threat. Both sides would be threatened. We could continue for a very long time, like with Ukraine. And I think there will be a lot of money coming into Nepal from both sides. I have experienced it everywhere. During the war, there is no shortage of money. During peace, there is no money. Human beings don't pay. Hi, Stephen. Nice to see you. And so for peace, there is no money. And Stephen, as some of us work together, we know as long as the Russians were present in Afghanistan, there was unlimited amount of money. The day Russian left, money also died. And then Afghanistan went back to becoming Taliban state. Then money flowed back again, of course. But usually in the international sphere, if the foe is very powerful, big money flows in. If the foe is not that powerful, and if it's an irrelevant country, nobody cares. Now, nobody cares. So if it is politically irrelevant and depending on the foe, so in case of Nepal, it will probably be a pretty well-funded conflict if it happens, Joy sir. That's my answer.
So, Raja, my former UNHCR colleague, I love your comparison with sandwich, with both Ukraine being in a sandwich and Nepal being in a sandwich between the neighboring big powers. My question is this: in the case of Ukraine, there was a spark. There were several sparks, but one spark is the Russian minority in Ukraine gave Russia a lever, gave it something, and gave it a particular interest in Ukraine and a particular excuse. And then probably Russia miscalculated by not confining itself to Donbass, but by trying to take Kiev. But anyway, it had that entry point, which was the Russian minority in Ukraine. What I want to ask you on Nepal is, are there any entry points, any sparks that can be used or exploited by either India, one side of the sandwich, or by China, other side of the sandwich, which make a conflict, which make a growing conflict more possible? I liked so much a previous question about how Nepali are generally peaceful, nice people, like you, Raja. They don't provoke into war, and which is maybe not the case in Ukraine, particularly this Russian minority. But so what I'm looking for is something. A spark, an entry point. What are the danger scenarios, the particular danger scenarios for Nepal? We know what they are for Ukraine, but what are they for? What can they be for Nepal? Thank you, Raja.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a wonderful question. And my response is that there are a multitude of entry points for both countries in Nepal. Multitude. Nepal has over 100 ethnics and some 120 languages and ethnic groups here. And there are people here who believe in the leftist ideology and are, as of now, in communication with the Chinese. There are people here who believe they are already part, they are much closer to the Indian side. In fact, the blockade, 2015 blockade, was because some of the people at the border thought that the constitution was unfair and then instigated a blockade which India supported. So and given the fact that there are a lot of people here who do feel that this is an exploitative society and needs a communistic kind of rule, and there is a Communist Party of Nepal and all of that, not necessarily that they are in collusion with each other. But if any side wanted an entry, it may not unlike the Crimea annexation, because Crimea annexation was followed by after the 2014 revolution, which we threw out the elected president, and then the Russians reacted to that by annexing Crimea, which was actually a consequence of the 2014 revolution, which is said to have been instigated by the CIA. So anybody who wants to instigate a revolution here, Nepal it is feasible to do that, and there are a lot of strong divided opinions on both sides of the aisle.
Thank you, Raja.
Yes, if I may, I'd like to comment on the responses and to my first question. Is it okay?
Please, please.
Okay, I know that as a speaker, certain things our protocol does not allow one to say, but as an outsider and a participant, maybe I can take the liberty to talk what I think is a situation, and I had asked what could be the pragmatic solution. You see, right now, Bhairaja Panday's analysis is we are in a situation where there's a corrupt for the corrupt, incompetent for the incompetent. We don't have a system where we talked about for the people and by the people. Unfortunately, we are living in a regime for the corrupt and by the corrupt, for the incompetent and the incompetent. But fortunately, yet there are people who are competent and not corrupt. Yet we are still maybe a slight majority. And talking about all the woes and the problems is all good. But I really feel from a pragmatic point of view, maybe we need to have a vigilante kind of an organization that supports people who are victims of corruption, that comes out in protest when things are not done properly. These are the pragmatic steps that we need to take. When a judge makes a corrupt decision, everybody talks about it, and the corrupt by the corrupt is not going to take any action against that judge. But we who are still in the slight majority also are not doing anything. Maybe we should come out, protest, rally, if necessary, capture that judge and beat him up or put him in jail. Those are practical situations, because I think a revolution in the country is far, far better than a war or Third World War from foreign countries. And that is the only solution I can think of that is really pragmatic to the solution. And I can understand our speaker cannot suggest these things. But other than this, it's going to be all talk and no walk.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak. I know that's your favorite subject.
Well, thank you, everyone. We have come to the end of our lecture. Thank you for participating, and thank you so much, Bhairaja sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.